I'm 77 years old. I don't have a lot of time left to pretend I'm fine with how things turned out. I'm not saying that to get sympathy. I'm saying it because at this age, you stop bargaining with the truth. You either look at it or you don't. And I've spent most of my life not looking. I'm sitting in a quiet house as I say this. The kind of quiet that used to sound peaceful to me. Now it just sounds like absence. It's funny what silence becomes when there aren't people in it anymore. Some mornings I wake up and I reach my hand across the bed without thinking. And there's nothing there. I still do it. Like the body remembers even when life doesn't give you the same answer anymore. I've been thinking a lot about pain. Not the kind you can point to. Not a broken bone. Not a surgery scar. The kind that sits behind your ribs and makes you a little impatient. A little distant. A little hard to reach. I ran from that kind of pain for most of my life. I thought I was doing what men were supposed to do. You work. You provide. You keep moving. You don't make a mess. You don't fall apart. You keep it together. And I finally understand why running from my pain ruined my relationships. Not because I was mean. Not because I didn't care. Because I was missing while I was still there. That's the part that hurts to admit. I was in the room, but I wasn't in the room. I was at the table, but I wasn't at the table. I was married. I was a father. I was a friend. I was a brother. But something in me was always halfway out the door. In the present day, people like to talk about love like it as a feeling you either have or don't have, like it's a light switch. But love, real love, is made out of attention, out of being there when it's inconvenient, out of sitting with someone when you'd rather disappear into your own head. And I didn't know how to sit with anyone, not even myself. I live with that now, with the way my life is shaped. Like a tree that grew around a fence, it couldn't move. When you're 77, you don't have a lot of someday left. Your calendar doesn't feel wide. It feels thin. You start noticing how many people in your phone don't pick up anymore. You start noticing which birthdays you can't forget because there is nobody left to remind you. Sometimes I think about the man I was at 30. I don't hate him. That's not the story. He wasn't evil. He wasn't stupid. He was tired. He was scared. He was proud. He was trying. He just didn't know what he was carrying. And he didn't know that carrying it alone would cost him the people who loved him. I grew up in a house where feelings weren't discussed. We had rules, not conversations. My father wasn't a monster. He worked hard. He put food on the table. He fixed things. He didn't drink much, didn't shout much, but he also didn't ask you how you were. He didn't sit on the edge of your bed at night. He didn't say, "Tell me what's going on inside you." If you were sad, you were told to be grateful. If you were angry, you were told to stop being disrespectful. If you were afraid, you were told to toughen up. So I learned early that pain was something you swallowed. You didn't bring it into the room. You didn't hand it to someone else. You kept it in your pocket and you went to work. By my 20s, I was already good at it. I had a job with steady hours. I had a routine. I woke up early, shaved fast, drank coffee standing up. I liked the feeling of being productive. It made me feel clean. I met my wife when I was 26. She had a laugh that came out before she even decided to laugh. She looked people in the eye. She asked questions and actually waited for the answers. She was warm in a way that made me nervous. When she asked me about my childhood, I gave her the short version. When she asked me what I wanted, I said the safe things. A house, stability, a family. I didn't know how to say, "I want to feel okay inside." I don't think I even knew that was an option. We got married. We rented a small place at first. A little kitchen where you could touch both counters if you stretched your arms out. We didn't have much money, but we had plans. We bought groceries carefully. We shared a car. We argued about stupid things like who used too many paper towels. Normal life, And when our first child was born, I cried. Just once. Quietly. In the hospital hallway, not in front of anyone. I told myself it was joy. Maybe it was. But there was something else too. Fear. A strange grief. Like I could already feel how much I could lose. I didn't understand that the fear was pain trying to get my attention. So I did what I always did. I got busy. I worked more hours. I volunteered for overtime. I said yes to every responsibility because responsibility felt like a reason not to feel anything. At the time, it looked like devotion. It looked like being a good man. And in some ways, it was. Bills got paid. The fridge was full. The roof didn't leak. We took family photos and everyone was dressed nicely. But there were little moments that started slipping through my hands. My wife would tell me about her day, and I'd nod without really hearing. My mind would be somewhere else. The next shift, the next payment, the next thing to fix. Sometimes she would say, "Are you listening?" And I'd feel irritated, not at her, at myself, because I knew I wasn't. But instead of admitting that, I'd say, "Yes, I'm listening," in a flat way, like she was bothering me. I hate that memory, because she wasn't asking for much. She was asking for me. My kids would run into the room and show me something they made. A drawing, a paper airplane, a little crooked tower of blocks. And I'd say, "That's nice," while looking at the newspaper, or the TV, or the clock. Sometimes I'd look up and actually see their face fall. Just a small change, a tiny tightening around the mouth. They didn't make a scene. Children don't always make a scene. Sometimes they just stop coming to you with things. That's how it starts. Not with a big fight, not with screaming, with small choices that teach people you're not safe to bring their heart to. And I didn't see it happening because I thought the important part was that I was there, that I was in the house, that I showed up for birthdays, that I fixed the sink, that I drove them to school. I didn't understand that you can show up in body and still leave everyone lonely. My wife tried, at first, to pull me toward her. She'd touch my arm when I walked by. She'd sit close on the couch. She'd say things like, "We don't talk anymore," and I'd hear it as criticism. I'd get defensive. I'd say, "What do you mean? I'm right here. I work all day. I do everything." I can still hear my own voice saying that. Like love was a ledger. Like I could point to the hours and the paychecks and call it intimacy. But the truth is, I didn't want to talk because talking meant there might be feelings. And feelings meant pain. And pain meant something I didn't know how to handle. There was a part of me that believed if I opened that door, everything would spill out and I would drown. So I kept the door shut. And the people around me learned to stop knocking. I think about certain nights. Not dramatic nights, just normal ones, dinner finished. Plates in the sink. Kids doing homework at the table. My wife standing by the counter, drying a dish with her hands moving slow, like she was waiting for something to happen. And I'd be in my chair, tired, telling myself I deserved rest. She'd say, "Do you ever feel unhappy?" Not a trap, not an accusation, just a question. And I'd shrug and say something like, "Everybody's tired," or "That's life." And that was the end of it. I can see it now. The way her shoulders would drop a little, the way she would turn back to the dishes, the way the room would go quiet again. I didn't notice what those moments were doing. They were building a wall, one brick at a time. And because the wall went up slowly, I thought it wasn't real. I thought if there was a problem, it would come with a loud alarm, a clear sign, a big event. But relationships don't always break like glass. Sometimes they wear down like cloth. A little thinner every year until one day you hold it and it just tears. I also ran from my pain in other ways. Not the obvious ways people imagine. I wasn't out at bars. I wasn't chasing affairs. I wasn't disappearing for days. I was the kind of man who hid in plain sight. I hid in work, in chores, in fixing things, in the news, in small routines that made me feel in control. If my wife cried, I didn't know what to do. I would stand there like I was watching a foreign movie without subtitles. I would say, "What's wrong?" in a stiff voice, and if she couldn't answer neatly, I would feel helpless. And helplessness felt too close to pain, so I'd try to solve it. Offer a solution. Tell her what she should do. Tell her not to worry. And if she didn't stop crying, I would get irritated. Not because I didn't love her, because her tears were asking me to come into a place I'd been running for my whole life. My children learned, too, what kind of father I was. They learned I could handle practical problems. A flat tire, a broken toy, a school project. But if they were scared, if they were ashamed, if they were confused about something inside them, they went somewhere else, or they went nowhere at all. And that's when pain becomes a family tradition. I didn't see that either. Years went by. The kids grew. They got taller, then quieter. Their world moved out of our living room and into their own rooms. My wife and I became managers of a household instead of partners. We talked about schedules, about money, about who was picking up what, about doctor appointments. But we didn't talk about us. Once, when I was in my 40s, she said something very simple. She said, "I miss you." Not, "I miss us." Not, "I miss romance." Just me. "I miss you." And I remember feeling a kind of panic because I didn't know how to answer. I didn't know where to find the version of me she was talking about. So I made a joke, something stupid. I said, "I'm right here, aren't I?" And she smiled a little, like she was being polite. And that was that. That moment comes back to me more than it should, because it was a doorway. If I had walked through it, maybe things would have changed. But I didn't. I stayed where I knew how to stand. Then came the turning point. Not a movie moment, not a dramatic scene. Just one phone call that rearranged everything. My wife got sick. It didn't start big. It started with being tired. A little weight loss, a cough that wouldn't go away. We told ourselves it was nothing. We were busy. We had bills. We had routines. We had the comforting lie that there would be time later to deal with it properly. Then the tests came back. The doctor used careful words. The kind of careful words that mean the truth is sharp. I can still remember the room, the smell of disinfectant, the way my wife's hand felt in mine, thin, cooler than usual. And for the first time in a long time, there was nothing to fix. No overtime shift, no repair job, no practical solution. Just the reality that the person I had taken for granted was not going to be there forever. That's when the pain I'd been running from caught up to me. All at once, not just the pain of losing her, the pain of realizing how little of myself I had given her when she was alive and reaching. In the months that followed, I tried. I really did. I sat by her bed. I held her hand. I brought her water. I adjusted pillows. And I started saying things, clumsy things like, "I love you," more often. I started asking, "Are you okay?" in a softer voice. But it felt late. It felt like trying to learn a language when the person who speaks it is already leaving. One night, she looked at me, and her eyes were tired but clear. She said, "You don't have to be strong with me." And something in me cracked, because I realized how long she had been waiting for that. For me to stop performing and just be human beside her. I cried then, not politely, not in a hallway. Right there, like a child. I couldn't stop. And she reached up and touched my cheek the way she used to when we were young. The way you touch someone when you're not angry anymore, just sad. She died a few weeks later. After the funeral, the house felt wrong. Like the air didn't move the same way. People came by. They brought food. They said the words people say. She's in a better place. She's not suffering. Be grateful for the years. I nodded. I thanked them, but inside, all I could think was, I wasted her while I had her. Not in the obvious way. I didn't cheat. I didn't abandon her. I wasted her in small daily ways, in being unavailable, in staying closed, in making her feel alone next to me. That's a hard thing to carry when you're old, because you can't go back and be different. You can't redo the years. You can't call her and say, I'm sorry I wasn't there. There's no number to dial for the past. After she died, my relationships with my children didn't magically deepen. That's another lie people like. That loss brings everyone together. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it just shows you what isn't there. My kids were kind. They helped with arrangements. They checked on me. They did what good children do. But they also had their own lives, their own spouses, their own routines. And I realized something. I had trained them to live without me emotionally. So that's what they did. They would call, yes. They would visit, yes. But there was a distance, a politeness. They didn't come to me with their messy feelings. They didn't sit and talk for hours the way I saw other families do. And I couldn't blame them. I had spent decades being a man who could handle tasks, not tenderness. I see them now as adults, and I can tell they care about me. I'm not saying I'm unloved, but I'm not deeply known either. That's the cost. You can be loved for your role and still be lonely as a person. If you're listening to this and you're younger, you might think, well, at least he had a family. Yes, I did. And that's why it hurts. Because I had the thing people spend their whole lives hoping for. And I still managed to live inside it like a stranger. There are things that can't be fixed now. I can't give my wife the husband she deserved in her 30s, when she still had energy and hope and wanted to be met halfway. I can't go back to my children's childhood and look up from the paper when they brought me a drawing. I can't rewind the nights I dismissed my wife's questions with a shrug. I can apologize, and I have. But apologies don't resurrect years. They don't fill the empty spaces with what should have been there. Time doesn't negotiate. It just keeps going. And one day you look around and realize the most important parts of your life happened while you were busy avoiding your own heart. I've learned late what running from pain really does. It doesn't make the pain go away. It just moves it into the relationships. It turns it into distance, into irritability, into silence, into the kind of loneliness that can exist in a full house. It makes you a person people love carefully. And that's not how I wanted to be remembered. If I could speak to you directly, just as one human to another, I wouldn't tell you what you should do. I'm not in a position to instruct anyone. I'll just tell you what I wish I had understood. Pain doesn't disappear because you refuse to look at it. It waits. And while it waits, it quietly runs your life. It tells you to stay busy, to stay in control, to stay useful, to keep conversations shallow, to avoid the moments where someone might see you. And the people who love you will try, at first, to reach you. They'll ask questions. They'll bring up hard topics. They'll invite you into the uncomfortable parts of being close. If you keep refusing, they won't fight forever. They'll adapt. They'll stop asking. They'll stop sharing. They'll learn to keep their feelings away from you so they don't get hurt by your absence. And one day you'll wake up and you'll have what you thought you wanted. Peace, quiet, no drama, no hard conversations. And it will feel like emptiness. If any part of this sounds familiar, I'm not asking you to tear your life apart. I'm not asking you to confess everything in one night and change overnight. I'm only saying this. The moments you avoid are the moments that build closeness. Sitting with someone when you don't know what to say, admitting you're scared, admitting you're sad, letting someone see you without the armor. That's not weakness. That's presence. I didn't understand that until the bed was empty. I look at old photos sometimes. Not often, but sometimes. There's one of my wife and me on a small porch. The kids are little. She's smiling at the camera. I'm standing stiff, like I'm on duty. My hand is on her shoulder, but it looks like a gesture, not a touch. When I look at that photo now, I don't think we were happy. I think she was reaching, and I didn't know how to reach back. And I wonder how many times she felt alone while I congratulated myself for being responsible. Now I make tea in the morning. I sit by the window. I watch people walk their dogs. I watch couples in cars. I watch fathers with kids on their shoulders. And I think about how quickly life moves when you're not paying attention. I still have some people in my life. I'm grateful for that. I don't want to sound like a man begging for pity, but I do live with the consequences of my own distance. I live with the fact that some conversations will never happen. I live with the fact that my wife went to her grave knowing I loved her, but also knowing I made her wait too long for me to be fully there. That's a particular kind of sorrow. Quiet, heavy, settled. If this meant something to you, if it landed somewhere in you, you can sit with it for a moment. You don't have to do anything with it right away. And if you feel like it, you can share your thoughts with someone you trust, not to fix anything, just to be known. Because being known is what I spent my life avoiding, and it's what I miss the most now. I'm 77. I don't know how many years I have left. Some days my body feels fine. Some days it doesn't. Some days I forget why I walked into a room. Some days I remember everything too clearly. I can't change the story I already lived, but I can tell it truthfully. And the truth is, running from my pain didn't protect me. It protected the pain. It let it grow into a shape that pushed people away. It made me safe on the surface and unreachable underneath. And now, in the quiet, I finally understand. Not in a dramatic way, not in a way that saves the day, just in the way an old man understands something when it's too late to use the knowledge properly. That's how it goes sometimes. You learn the lesson after the class is over, and all you can do is sit with it and hope that someone else hears it in time.